Welcome to the inaugural episode of Miles Ahead, the Canadian Points podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Frugal Flyer. I'm Reed, one of the two founders of Frugal Flyer, along with Josh, another founder, and two of our content contributors, Danny and Jeff. Just a quick overview of what this episode is going to look like. We're going to start with an introduction to the podcast, to Frugal Flyer, and then the meat of the episode, we're going to get into a three-part topic covering the basics of miles and points. Part one is going to be all about kind of just a general overview and discussion on why we do this and how you can benefit. And then we're going to conclude with some trip updates and quick news updates, discussions around things happening in the world of miles and points. So I thought we'd get into introductions first. What got you into travel? What got you into miles and points? What you like to write about? And, anything else you want to say? So maybe we'll start with Josh first.
Sure, thanks. So my name is Josh Bandura. I'm the other founder of Frugal Flyer. I've been collecting, earning, and redeeming miles and points since 2015. I actually got started with a WestJet RBC World Elite MasterCard back in the day, doing a lot of North America domestic travel, and the companion voucher on the card was a big hit. So I got started with that. And from there, I've just been able to build my miles and points earning abilities up and have been able to take some fantastic trips in recent years, including Thailand, Italy, Greece, the Maldives, and a few more booked. So excited to share those experiences and my knowledge.
Thanks for the intro, Josh. And over to you, Danny.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Happy to be here. It's Daniel Burkett. I am one of the authors at Frugal Flyer. I got into miles and points a little bit later than most people here. I started at the end of 2021 when my wife went through a bit of a shift in her career. She went from being a staff nurse to a travel nurse. So as we were going to be traveling around a lot, I wanted to find something that would be able to subsidize the cost of flying to and from different cities, because we were going to be living in two different cities for basically a year. So I ended up doing some research and found one of our colleagues over at Prince of Travel and their YouTube page, and I was hooked. I was a deep dive into miles and points, and now we have 36 trade lines between my wife and myself. We've accumulated over 2 million points, and we've had some great trips that I can't wait to tell everybody about.
Sounds great. And we're going to get into it later, but credit to Danny, he was one of the first ones that really pushed the idea of us doing a podcast. So part of the reason we're on the call here. And Jeff?
Yeah, thanks. My name's Jeff Jameson, based in Western Canada. I got into points and miles and credit cards in early 2018 on our first trip to Europe. We were just flying economy. We bought tickets with cash, and all I wanted was lounge access for the trip. So I got my first CIBC Adventure card. And then after that, the rest is history. I knew I was immediately hooked to travel, and I wanted to have better experiences, travel in business class. And ever since, I've just been putting all my effort into just trying to earn as much miles and points as possible, trying to share my experiences as much as possible with my family, taking my brother, my dad on some fantastic trips. And yeah, that's what it's all about for me.
Yeah, it seems like your brother travels more than all of us.
Yes,
so.
He does.
Thanks, Jeff. And so there's two other writers not on the call. I want to shout out to them, though, Andy and Quentin, both really good writers for the site. That Andy's has a hobby of photography, and he's very into transportation systems, budget travel, low-cost carriers. His first article was on some of the low-cost carriers. And so shout out to Andy, and then Quentin, who's actually at a Digestive Disease Week conference right now. So Quentin does research in gastrointestinal disease, and he's applying to become a physician. So very interesting guy. And also just to mention, so if you want to learn more about any of us, we're all available. Our bios are available on frugalflyer.ca/authors. And yeah, plan for the episodes going forward to typically we'll have 4 of us. It may be the same 4 here. It may be a mixture of us and the other guys. So yeah. So I mentioned the podcast is brought to you by Frugal Flyer. So just a little bit of background on what is Frugal Flyer. Frugal Flyer, or frugalflyer.ca, is a Canadian travel website and blog. We focus on frugal travel, which we distinguish as, different than, cheap travel or budget travel. So it's really about making travel more affordable for the average person, whether that's, pretty typical kind of vacations people like to take, or what a lot of us like to do and what we'll talk about is making luxury travel more within reach for the average Canadian. And so that spurs on our slogan, travel more, pay less. And a big component of what we write about also is this kind of strategy of miles and points, which we'll talk about a bit more later. Yeah, and I started the site in late 2019, 2020 with Josh. And so that was a bit of weird timing, as that was just before COVID. So it was a bit weird writing about travel when nobody could really actually travel. But we've stuck with it. We've seen really good growth through 2021 to now. So we're fortunate now to have over 400 articles published and 4 writers in addition to myself and Josh. Yeah, and as far as the decision to start a podcast, we've always been looking for the next way to reach, ways to reach a wider audience. This is something Danny brought up as an idea quite a while back. And later on, we met with our team in Seattle, and we had some discussions there, and everyone was really, really enthusiastic about the idea to do a podcast. So that made the decision pretty easy for us. So it's still a work in progress, but the plan right now is to do monthly episodes released on the first Friday of every month. And these will be published on frugalflyer.ca/podcast. And Josh is going to talk a bit about what we intend to cover in terms of topics on the podcast.
For sure. So the world of miles and points and travel is very, very, very vast. You can go down a rabbit hole very easily as there's tons of content and various levels of knowledge. So throughout the podcast, we'll definitely be talking about beginner, intermediate, and advanced miles and points strategies, covering from getting started in the hobby to someone who's been in the hobby for 7, 8, 9 years and where they're at right now and kind of how their knowledge has evolved. Of course, we'll also be covering news and updates within the miles and points landscape. Not every news item is newsworthy, so it won't be a comprehensive, kind of download every episode, but we'll touch on the high level things that we find important that have changed or have come up within the miles and points community. Of course, we all love talking about vacations and the various trip experiences that we've had, whether it be luxury flights, trying a new carrier, a great redemption that we made, whether using points or, a free night certificate at any of the properties that we like to visit. We'll always be sharing those, as well as a little bit about how we booked those experiences and how you can do something similar. We all love manufactured spending. No secret there. It's a big part of the hobby as you move towards the intermediate and advanced area. Miles and points and manufactured spending go hand in hand. So of course, we'll talk about that a bit here and there, but it's not going to be all the secrets are out in the open as manufactured spending is typically handled within the community, but you can definitely expect to pick up some tips and tricks to improve your miles and points game. Of course, we will have a bit of a component where listeners can provide questions, which Reed will be touching on shortly here. So if there's anything that you would like to learn more about or would love for us to touch on in a future episode, we'll have a submission form on our website, and I'll pass it to Reed to tell you more about that.
Yeah. So Josh, you covered it there. In addition to those topics, this is something we want to iterate on, and it's going to be something we want to cater to our audience. So we strongly encourage listeners to check out that form, which is on frugalflyer.ca/podcast, and submit any questions you have there. Anything you want us to cover on, anything you want to learn more about. As well, if you have episode-specific questions, every episode is going to have an episode page, which can be accessed from that main podcast page. So there'll be a comment section there as well to submit episode-specific questions. Yeah, and other than that, I think with introductions, housekeeping out of the way, let's jump into our first topic. So we're going to be talking about the basics of miles and points, and this is going to be a 3-part topic. So part 1 is just kind of an overview of why we do this, what you can get from it, and then part 2 and 3, we're going to get a lot more into the real nitty-gritty of the logistics of actually earning and redeeming points. So that'll be in episodes 2 and 3. So, yeah, kind of main first question for us to talk about is what is miles and points and how does it benefit us? So maybe you guys can take a crack at it. What are miles and points?
So miles and points are closely tied to loyalty programs that are offered by airlines. So more often known as frequent flyer programs. Hotel chains offer miles and points to their loyalty programs, as well as we have many financial institutions in Canada and the United States that also have in-house loyalty programs. Miles and points are essentially conjecture in the way that it's used as a way to reward customers for their loyalty, whether that be, flying on certain airlines, staying at certain hotel chains, or using a certain credit card. And so customers receive these miles and points for using these services. And in turn, these miles and points have intrinsic value in being able to redeem them for other experiences.
Yeah. And I was going to make the point too, when we talk about miles and points, it's airline miles and points is kind of a broad category. So there's a lot of different types of miles and types of points. And really it's kind of this general umbrella term for all the things that we try to do to use these loyalty programs to benefit our travel. And so with that, there's, obviously a lot of ways we do benefit from using miles and points. I already kind of mentioned two of them. So, reducing overall travel costs or traveling in greater comfort or in luxury for a fraction of what those types of experiences normally cost. And oftentimes both of those can be achieved, which is really the holy grail of miles and points. So another question for us all, and I think we all know the answer. We're traveling, we arrive at the airport, we get through security. Where is the first place all of us immediately go?
Airport lounge.
Airport lounge. Yeah. So this is something that I think a lot of people, maybe they know they exist, they walk by them, but they don't realize how much of a benefit lounges can have on your travel experiences and how easy it is actually to get access complimentary just through holding the right credit card.
Yeah, those airport lounges really make the travel experience more palatable. I'm sure we've all been there in times where we've sat in the terminal for 5 hours on a layover or, spent $25 on a crappy sandwich from some place or $10 beers. Like all of that goes away with an airport lounge and a comfier spot, complimentary food, complimentary alcohol, better Wi-Fi typically as well. It just makes the whole time spent at an airport, which is not all that enjoyable in the first place, much, much more palatable.
Yeah, and I will say, as Reed said, with how easy it is to get into lounges, the lounge situation isn't quite as nice as it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, given how easy it is for people to get in. I often find them to be quite overcrowded and just generally pretty subpar, especially on the priority pass level lounges. So I think airline lounges, particularly, especially when you're flying in business class, are the ones with lounges that you're going to try to want to aim for. But even still, any basic lounge is going to be better than at the gate, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Danny can attest to it as well. Like there definitely are some more impressive lounges internationally than we necessarily have access to in most places in Canada. But yeah, I always used to hate going to the airport early. You have nothing to do. You sit around or go to a restaurant. But now, knowing you can just go and wait in the lounge and kind of relax before the flight is really a big benefit. So
recently we were chatting with Danny and he actually got a facial at an airport lounge not that long ago.
That's right. So if you shamelessly plug, check out my Sapphire Preferred LGA article that was posted earlier in May. You will see that I did in fact receive a facial at that lounge. So I didn't actually know that this was going to be a feature of the lounge until I checked in. And they said, "Do you want a facial?" And I said, "Absolutely, I do." Thank goodness I got here 3 hours before. So that was a very cool experience and not something we typically see in North America. So contrary to Jeff's point, that Chase Sapphire lounges are some of the best in America, but they're very limited for access.
Yeah, so we also see other benefits of miles and points in other areas. So thinking about hotels, right? No matter where you travel, you're most likely staying at a hotel. And there's a few big chains that are worldwide. So we have Marriott, Bonvoy, Hilton Honors, and World of Hyatt. If you earn status by staying at these chains and through other tricks as well, you can get a ton of benefits when you stay at these properties. So this includes things such as complimentary breakfast for yourself and a guest. At some properties in the world, that adds up to saving, $40, $80, $100 a day on food alone. You can also expect other little perks such as, suite upgrades. We were recently in Seattle for our team retreat, and one team member got upgraded to what is kind of the penultimate suite at the W Seattle, and that was a great time for us or a great spot for us to be able to connect and, meet with one another as opposed to sitting in a normal small queen size bedroom. And there's also other things that you can benefit from, such as, late checkout, free parking at certain properties. So within the world of miles and points, so you have your airport lounges, which are a major plus. You have hotel upgrades and, loyalty program status that really offers some additional strong benefits that really don't cost you anything extra, but can really improve your travel.
Yep. And breakfast is kind of one of the main things we shoot for with any of the hotel programs. If you can get free breakfast for 2 weeks worth of, stays, then that adds up. And lots of times the properties have really, really incredible breakfast too. So,
Yep. And that's also going into the fact that vacation breakfast always hits different. Like, let's be real. When you can get into 3-4 mimosas and then lay on the beach for 3 hours and that's the start of your day, I don't think it get much better than that.
Yeah, great. So aside from hotels and airport lounges, there's some other maybe less flashy benefits that we all kind of have opportunity to take advantage of because of miles and points, and specifically because of credit cards. So one kind of less talked about benefit of credit cards is most of them, or most of the more premium ones, come with travel and travel medical insurance. And you might think this isn't really, what is this insurance? Is it really useful? But I've had the opportunity now to use it twice, and it actually is really beneficial. So I was actually just after COVID going to Iceland with a friend. And so this was a time when travel was kind of still a bit of a mess. And we had a flight going from Toronto to Reykjavik, which was canceled. So we had to find a hotel in Toronto. We had to kind of make do and reschedule a bunch of things for our trip. And I had booked that flight, I believe, with an American Express card. So I went through their insurance. And within a week of getting back from the trip, I got compensated for the hotel stay and some basic items. And interestingly enough, my friend had done his travel insurance just with AMA Travel, and he had a lot harder time kind of getting his claim to go through. I don't think he actually even really ever got anything from it. So that's kind of one of the other benefits you get with these, with miles and points and with credit cards. And another thing that I think is overlooked is the fact that when you do travel, most of the cards in Canada charge a fee for transactions that are done in a currency other than Canadian dollars. But if you hold the right cards, there's a select few in Canada and a lot more in the US that have no foreign exchange fees. So, if you travel a lot, if you spend a lot on travel, that fee can definitely add up. So it's a good thing to have one of those cards in your arsenal as well.
Yeah, and just quickly to interject on that, if you're ever given the opportunity to pay in Canadian dollars outside of Canada, like if you're traveling in Europe, insert your Canadian credit card and it says, do you want to be charged in euros or do you want to be charged in Canadian dollars? Always choose euros. The conversion fee that the machine is going to give you is way worse than the 2.5% conversion fee you have to pay on your credit card statement.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Great tip. So we have, there's a ton of benefits that come with miles and points and credit cards, and we'll cover them more in depth as we, go through the podcast as well. We, have weekly articles on Frugal Flyer. Where the benefits in miles and points really come to fruition is some of the aspirational trips that we've actually been able to take. I think we all probably have experiences of, boarding planes and wondering how we could sit at the front. yet you're squandering all the way to the back of the plane in the last 3 rows. We've all been able to take some excellent trips that would otherwise not be financially possible. Frankly, not only to some really exotic destinations, but even to some really luxurious properties in North America and beyond. So we'll touch more on those later, but I think at the end of the day, the driver of miles and points for all of us on this call is simply being able to experience things that we otherwise wouldn't be able to experience.
Yeah, well said.
Yep.
So the next thing I want to talk about is we've talked about how we can all benefit and all these ways that we benefit. A lot of people probably think, and I do hear this a lot, like it seems too good to be true. So how is this possible? What are the credit cards and companies and banks getting out of this that they can offer all these benefits and offer all these points? So I'll leave it to Josh to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So as we'll touch on more in future episodes, the biggest way to acquire miles and points is through credit card welcome bonuses. So typically on a credit card, there'll be an offer where you'll earn X amount of points after spending X amount of money in a set period of time. So they use these welcome bonuses and these large volumes of miles and points as a way to acquire customers. So as we know, there's a few big banks in Canada, and they're always competing with one another with their credit offerings and bank account offerings and everything like that. Through offering these welcome bonuses, they're playing a long-term game. So what they're hoping is they'll pay you, a tidy sum of miles and points to get this card as a customer and to use the card as a customer. But they're expecting to benefit from you as a customer over your lifetime. So this may mean, you might end up with another credit card with them. You might end up porting your mortgage over there or getting a new mortgage. You might end up with a car loan through that bank or paying fees, whether it be interest on credit cards or monthly fees on bank accounts. Essentially, they use it as a tool to get a potentially profitable customer within their ecosystem in hopes that it pays off down the road. So really looking at it, banks think of these welcome bonuses as an upfront cost to acquire a net profit in the future. Of course, as I mentioned, there's many ways that they can make money off you as a customer. The reality is, miles and points enthusiasts like ourselves, we're not really profitable customers, but we're such a small segment of the Canadian consumer base that it really doesn't matter. The goal for us is for our return to be far and above what we spend on annual fees or any other costs within this hobby. So by no means, are we ever going to sit here and talk about free travel. Frankly, free travel doesn't really exist in this space, no matter what you see on YouTube or elsewhere. But we try, how can we get the best return for our points and spend the least amount of money possible? We're not a profitable consumer base for the bank, but because there's so few of us, we really are just looking to get, the welcome bonus so we can redeem it for future trips with spending the least amount of money out of pocket. So while I talked about other ways that banks can become profitable off you as a customer, I'd like to pass it over to Danny to talk a little bit about merchant fees.
Yeah, so definitely banks make money when you bring them more business. As Josh talked about, if you have a credit card, it's probably easiest to have a bank account with that same bank, so it's easy to pay off your credit card. And maybe if you have a bank account, then you'll also see what their rates are for mortgages. And that's great. Banks love integrating customers and giving them lots of different products. There's actually quotas within a bank on how many new accounts were opened by one individual banker. But on a higher level, when we're talking about why banks want people spending money on credit cards, is because in North America, we have a merchant fee, or what's otherwise known as an interchange fee. And that doesn't really exist in any other part of the world. So North America is pretty unique with that the banks and processors like Visa and MasterCard, American Express, and Discover get to take 2 or 3% of that overall purchase. So if you go into a store and you buy something for $100, then the processor, Visa, Amex, MasterCard, is going to take 3%. And we'll actually see some businesses like mom and pop shops sometimes say no Amex. I'm sure you've encountered that sign, or you've seen Visa, MasterCard only, or at the most extreme levels, debit only, if a business really doesn't want to pay any merchant fees, because they're looking to maximize the bottom line. And if a customer is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, that is easy money for the bank and for the processor. So that's another reason why these banks want you to complete a minimum spending requirement, so that when you sign up for a new credit card, they know they're going to get at least this much revenue for giving you X, Y, and Z reward.
Yeah, 100%. So really with this, a lot of earning miles and points is done through credit card, welcome bonuses, and good personal financial habits are paramount. Wouldn't you agree, Reed?
I would agree. Yep. It's, miles and points is definitely, you've got to be responsible, and you've got to go into it already having a good grasp on your financial habits. Another thing we've talked about a bit is something like things like credit score. So a lot of people think you get a new credit card, won't that lower your credit score? The bulk of your credit score comes from, do you pay off the card on time? It's not just having credit. So as long as you continue being responsible, if you're signing up for more and more cards, your score over the long term will kind of remain steady. But yeah, so it's, all this stuff, it seems too good to be true. Some ways it is, but there is a lot to still kind of keep in mind. And there's still a lot of work too that we'll talk more about in later parts of this 3-part series. In terms of when you're getting a welcome bonus, you do have to spend usually a certain amount called the minimum spend. But I think we can all attest to, everyone on this call can attest to the fact that the juice is worth the squeeze in terms of going for those welcome bonuses.
Just quickly in response to what Danny was saying about seeing the no Amex sign, as soon as I see that, I'm pulling out my Amex, because I hate seeing that. And more often than not, in my experience, their terminal will accept an Amex card. They just don't want to pay the interchange fee. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Building off, sorry, Reed, just to quickly build on that point of Jeff's, the Visa Infinite Privilege cards, which are the most expensive Visa cards in Canada, actually charge the same merchant fee as an Amex does. So whenever I see that no Amex sign, just out of spite sometimes, I'll pull up my Visa Infinite Privilege and be like, you don't want to pay my Amex bill? No problem. I'll charge you the same price with my Visa. Yeah.
Yeah, usually I joke with my girlfriend sometimes. We'll go to a restaurant, new restaurant, we'll like it, and be like, well, this place is great, but unfortunately we can't come back because they don't take Amex.
Got to get those Cobalt 5X.
Yeah.
Date night's not going to pay for itself.
Yeah. So maybe we can talk a bit about what are some of the programs that we think about a lot, that we're going to be talking about a lot on the podcast, and just kind of a cursory look at what programs people should be aware of and should maybe be focusing on. There's obviously countless loyalty programs in Canada and internationally in North America as well. We kind of categorize them into different groups or buckets. So there's airlines, hotels, banks, bank-related, banks like to issue their own kind of programs as well, or miscellaneous. So there's gas affiliate programs, grocery store affiliate programs, and other retail programs. And just as a note, so we have a lot of these programs. We have in-depth guides that are covered on our website under loyalty programs. So frugalflyer.ca/loyalty-program, or you can find it in the menu. So maybe we start first talking a bit about, our favorite thing, airline affiliate programs. Obviously in Canada, there's, kind of just 2 major airlines. You could even argue there's one of those is quite a bit bigger, but Air Canada, Aeroplan, and WestJet has WestJet Rewards. I know for me, and I think for most of us, we find a lot more use in Aeroplan. It's a much bigger airline with a lot more flights going all over the world. WestJet has some utility just for kind of regional or domestic travel within Canada. I personally, as someone who lives in a city that's not a major hub for travel like Vancouver or Toronto, I do use WestJet sometimes for connecting to those hubs, or there are, some niche destinations in Canada where WestJet will have a direct flight and Air Canada doesn't. And so sometimes it does come in handy. So I would make the argument that in a perfect world, you might use both programs, but if you had to pick one, Air Canada Aeroplan is kind of the program you want to be following and focusing on.
Yeah, I agree entirely. I think Air Canada Aeroplan is the winner in Canada. Keep in mind when we talk about Air Canada Aeroplan, you don't just have to book flights on Air Canada to use this loyalty program. They are part of Star Alliance, which has many, many noteworthy carriers that fly worldwide. So we've been able to redeem on many other airlines using our Aeroplan points. Air Canada Aeroplan is also, they have a ton of affiliated credit cards with many banks in Canada, which is a major win. Frankly, we all kind of use Air Canada Aeroplan to book a lot of our international travel. Similarly to Reed, I'm located not in a hub city, I'm in Edmonton as well. And there is a bit of a use case for WestJet that I've been able to use it to go down to like Anaheim, to go to Disneyland. We've done some round trips to Vegas on WestJet through using the companion voucher through the WestJet RBC World Elite MasterCard. So there are some uses for it, but you're definitely not going to accrue WestJet dollars to fly to Italy. That's not the play there. You want to focus on Air Canada Aeroplan.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, like WestJet dollars, I've used them in the past to help get some family off of Vancouver Island when Aeroplan was dynamically priced like crazy. Aeroplan does have dynamic pricing, which we do have a great article on the website about that. And it can sometimes be prohibitive to the point where like a 35-minute flight can cost 20,000 points, but 30,000 points can get you on a 7-hour flight in economy to Europe. So it can be a little bit crazy that way. WestJet dollars are a little bit more fixed in terms of what they're going to be worth to some degree. But sometimes there's games that WestJet plays with like it's a $300 flight, but there's $250 of taxes and fees. So your WestJet dollars are only good for $50. But maybe Jeff can talk to us about some of the hotel programs that are in Canada.
Yeah, I mean, there's really only one that's relevant to Canadians, and that's Marriott Bonvoy, as Amex is the only issuer of co-branded Amex cards in Canada. So that tends to be the one that most Canadians focus on, which is a good thing because Marriott happens to be the largest hotel chain in the world. So that's a big advantage for us. And through that card, you can get some pretty good benefits, actually, including like a free night every year, silver status, which doesn't amount to much, but hey, it's something. And the 15 elite night credits are something as well, something to make use of just to boost your status. And it's probably even though some of us have access to some other hotel programs, it's the one that we're going to end up using the majority of the time, just due to the sheer amount of properties they have.
Yep, definitely the most accessible program.
Yeah, no matter where you travel, you can find crazy high-end Marriott Bonvoy properties or, just somewhere to sleep for the night. So it's a good fit no matter where you're heading.
Yeah, it's like 8,000 properties worldwide now? Like they're everywhere.
Yep.
There are other hotel programs, of course, as Jeff alluded to. So you have, World of Hyatt and Hilton Honors. There's not really an easy way for Canadians to earn those off the bat. There are some more advanced methods, which we'll cover in the future, as Canadians are able to get US credit cards. But for someone who's interested in starting out today, it's not really a feasible option. So Marriott Bonvoy is the best option and best way ahead if you're interested in saving on your hotel stays.
Yeah, and I definitely think we all we all use the hotel programs, but the biggest chunk of savings I find is from booking flights. So there's cases where you have Amex membership rewards and you could transfer them to a hotel, but you almost feel better like just transfer them to Aeroplan or transfer them to an airline. Sometimes, paying cash for a hotel, we all do that too. So it's, again, one of the more advanced things we'll get into later probably, but there is kind of a, decision-making process that we all go through to decide when it makes sense to use hotel points versus paying cash.
Yeah. You mentioned Amex membership rewards. So there's also a number of bank affiliated loyalty programs within Canada, Amex membership rewards being one of them. So similarly to frequent flyer and hotel loyalty programs, banks love to have their own loyalty programs where they can offer unique currency and unique redemption options for that currency. So we have things in Canada such as Amex membership rewards, which are the most powerful as they can be transferred to other frequent flyer programs and hotel programs for even greater value. We also have other really popular options such as RBC Avion points, which are probably one of our favorite currencies and flexibility for redeeming for travel. They can also be transferred to other airline partners. And then we have other programs such as CIBC Aventura, TD Rewards points, BMO Rewards. Essentially, every bank will have an in-house loyalty program, and they will offer a way to earn those points through one of their or multiple credit products.
Yep, I think RBC is probably our favorite for most of us on the call.
Yeah, RBC is useful, but they're useful because they're flexible, right?
Mhm.
Like when we're talking about points, you want to make sure you're collecting the right ones. Like me, Daniel, I spent the first, 4 years of my professional life when I had a credit card and I was actually using it for more than like $500 a month, spending on a TD Rewards card. And I probably spent like $50,000 on this card over 3 years. And I redeemed them for $1,500 in cash back. And when I look back on that, I was like, oh my gosh, I could have maximized $50,000 to spend so much better if I was using flexible currencies rather than fixed currencies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
sure.
There's also a number of other loyalty programs in Canada that Reed alluded to before. So you have, your gas loyalty programs, your grocery store loyalty programs, things such as Canadian Tire Triangle rewards, PC Optimum for anything under the Loblaws chain. And then we have Petro Points and a number of other kind of fuel and gasoline related programs. A lot of these, while not integral to our miles and points strategy of travel, there's still a great opportunity to save money, kind of cut costs. Even better, a lot of these programs don't require you to necessarily hold a co-branded credit card or any specific credit card. They can be improved by holding the right card, but a lot of them are simply things that you can sign up for and become a member of and start benefiting from immediately.
Yep, and I know for me, I find the Triangle program really good. I shop at Canadian Tire a lot, so and a lot of these programs, you can use them, or you can sign up for their affiliate credit cards and garner more benefits, but you can also just use them without any, having to sign up for a credit card. So Triangle is one example. There's lots of deals you can get through the Triangle program. But if you do hold a credit card, that also comes with a lot of benefits. One of the main ones I find really useful is the complimentary roadside assist that comes as part of that.
Yeah, love that.
Yep. And I know Josh uses PC Optimum, or Josh and his partner use PC Optimum.
Yeah, my significant other, she's not huge into miles and points, and I take a lot of charge with that, but she loves her PC Optimum MasterCard. Able to redeem for $300 or $400 worth of points a couple times a year just by using it for groceries. It's a great way to, supplement the cost on, the odd electronics purchase, frankly, and kind of put cash back in your wallet for spend that you were going to do anyways.
Well, and the nice thing about programs like Triangle and PC Optimum is they can be used on top of credit card benefits. So if you're going to be spending money at Canadian Tire anyway to try and get more Amex points, then you can also get Triangle Canadian Tire money cash back on top of your credit card points. So it's just another layer that we can add to maximize our return on spending.
Yeah, nice little double dip on that one.
Yep, Scene Plus is another good one. Maybe we won't get too deep into that, but that's probably a program most people are familiar with.
Gotta love free movies.
Yep. And then it's worth mentioning too, cashback. So there's a lot of cashback programs out there, cashback credit cards. I think we would all make the argument that the value of a cashback credit card is significantly lower than earning the same rate in a points earning credit card. If you can earn one membership reward per dollar spent or 1% in cashback, we're all going to pick the membership reward because we know when we redeem it, in the right way, it's worth a lot more than 1 cent. So, and yeah, so we've kind of given a big overview of a lot of different programs, a lot of different concepts. probably raising a lot more questions than answers. So in episode 2, episode 3, we're going to get into a lot more of like the actual logistics of how we do this and what we mean when we say, redeeming the right way.
For sure. So moving on, just to give a little bit more background on what our travels and where our travels have taken us as a team, it'd be fantastic if we could go around the room and just share a little bit about some of the favorite trips that you've taken with Miles and Points, and if there's anything notable that you've got booked for the rest of this year. So I'll kick it over to you to get us started.
Yeah, so I always struggle to list a favorite trip. You probably get a different answer, depending on the week. But one that comes to mind for me is Ireland. I did a trip where I, rented a car and drove the west coast of Ireland, and that was really fantastic, really lush landscapes, and I like photography as well, so it kind of complemented that. And so that was a trip I did almost all on Miles and Points as well. And I also went to Asia recently, Thailand, for the first time in March. And I got to fly my first first class flight on Cathay Pacific. I got to share that as well with my girlfriend. So it was her first time flying in business and first class. So that was really fun to share that with someone. As far as next trip, don't have anything booked yet, but we're looking at booking going to Spain and Portugal. So hoping to experience some new business class products there with TAPR Portugal and Iberia business class, which we'll probably use some of the programs we've mentioned, so Aeroplan and British Airways Avios points to book those.
Awesome. Yeah, Thailand was a big winner for me. I was able to do it last year. Incredibly hospitable country, fantastic people, amazing food. I'd go back to Thailand in a heartbeat. More recently, I was actually in the Maldives again in January where I got engaged. So that was fantastic. We did a nice little 8-night stay out there. The Maldives will always have a special place in my heart, and I'd love to make it back there again soon. As for what's coming next for me, I'm actually headed to Japan in September for the first time with my significant other, which we've both been really looking forward to. So kind of just a standard, round trip on business class, trying out a few different Asian airlines. We have Japan Airlines business class and All Nippon Airways business class on the return. One booked through British Airways Avios, the other one booked through Aeroplan. Plus, we have some excellent stays booked at a number of Hilton properties using various free night certificates and points. So properties such as the Conrad Tokyo, Conrad Osaka, as well as the Roku Kyoto LXR. Really able to kind of whittle down my points balance a bit. And then I'm actually also doing Bora Bora early in 2025. Danny?
Yeah, so Josh, just to quickly touch on something you said. Did you say a standard business class trip? Like, are you only flying business class?
Yeah, pretty much exclusively. If it's anything over 3 hours, I really try to not book economy at this point with every will in my body, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just riveting you there. We both know each other super well. So, I mean, if anybody flies more business and first class flights than Josh, it's probably me. When we talk about my favorite redemptions, it's hard to pick a favorite, just like Reed said. Like when you go on a trip and you do it you have such an amazing experience for such a little out-of-pocket expense, it's always awesome. But I'd have to say my favorite trip was originally trying to go to Mexico and then deciding to go to Japan with 10 days notice. So I originally spent 90 minutes trying to find United economy flights down to Mexico from Colorado, where we were living. And I had seen some reports of ANA business class being bookable within, if you're leaving within 2 weeks of departure and you want to book a ticket super last minute, you can do it. And I was like, you know what, let me just check my wife's schedule and see if this is even possible. And she had 6 days off in a row. So I punched in those dates, and not even 10 minutes later, I had return business class flights trip booked to Japan on ANA's best product called The Room for 300,000 Aeroplan points. So that was probably one of my favorite trips because the in-flight experience was also incredible. Like, we were flying 3 days before my birthday, and the Japanese staff looked at my passport and then prepared me a birthday cake and served it to me on the plane without my wife saying anything. Like, I immediately looked at her and I was like, why did you do this to me? This is like I'm in a Montana's and they're putting the moose ears on my head. Like, this is not what I want right now in a crowded business class cabin. And she was like, I swear to God, I did not do this. This was their own initiative. So that was really cool. And then just bumping into lounges again, we also got to access a Polaris lounge, which is by United. It's a very exclusive access, and we got to do that on that trip. So that was cool. And then for next stuff, we've got a safari lodge booked with Marriott Bonvoy points coming in December, which will be super unique and super cool. So it's in Kenya, and it's just south of the Serengeti in a lesser known part of the African desert called the Masai Mara Safari Lodge Park. I'm probably butchering what it actually is there.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And then we're probably going to do Zanzibar just before then, because the last thing you want is when you're traveling halfway around the world and spending 400,000 points on a hotel stay that a flight gets canceled and you miss one of your first nights. So at least going to Zanzibar for a couple of days before will be close to our final destination where we're spending a lot of points and money. So that'll allow us to make alternate plans if things go askew.
Sounds awesome. Yeah, my girlfriend and I are keeping our eyes out for the Serengeti JW. So that'll be a pretty similar experience, I think, to the Masai Mara.
Yep.
And Jeff, what about you?
Yeah, favorites. I'm going to agree with you. Ireland was probably by far our favorite country in Europe that I've been to so far. My wife and I had just an awesome time, and it was her idea to go there, so she gets all the credit for that one. And we had a really, really nice time here in Vietnam in January. Awesome country, did a lot of cool stuff. Flew on Starlux, A350 business class, was a real winner, one of the best we've done in years. And coming up, I got lots booked. I'm off to the Baltics in 2 weeks. The Baltics aren't really known for luxury, so most of the hotel stays are pretty generic, but flying on Condor's new A330 to Frankfurt, flying on Air France's new A350 business class home, so those will be fun at least. And then my brother and I have a pretty crazy itinerary coming up in November where it includes Q Suites, Emirates First Class, China Airlines, Thai Airways First business class, and we're going to stay at Mandapa in Bali, Ritz-Carlton Hong Kong. So we're trying to go as over top as we possibly can. So really looking forward to that one.
Feels like we're going to see a lot of reviews on Frugal Flyer from that trip.
Yep.
So awesome. No, that sounds excellent.
Yeah, I know those Starlux reviews are already on our site too. And if anyone's curious what a spaceship / business class cabin looks like, go check it out.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about some of the things that, kind of newsworthy things that have happened in the last few months with miles and points. So one of those things is a sort of update to something called PayPower. Josh mentioned a little bit about manufactured spending. We haven't explained it in great detail yet, but the basic idea is, with these credit card bonuses, sometimes you have to spend a certain amount of money to get the bonus. And if you can find a way to spend that money in a way where you get the money back, we call that manufactured spending. So with PayPower, this is a method that's been around for a long time. It's pretty public. There's a lot of blog posts about it, including an article on our site. And the way it works is it's essentially a reloadable MasterCard, and you can reload it at a variety of different stores. One of those is Safeway. And when you reload it, you can use a credit card to pay for that, basically loading of funds onto the card, and then you can take the funds from the card and withdraw into your bank account. And there is a little bit of a fee associated with that. So it's, per $500 load, it's $6.95, I believe. So it's a really good way, if you're just getting into this, it's one of the best ways to meet, or one of the easiest or most accessible ways, I would say, to meet minimum spends. So anyway, other than that long explanation, the update is that PayPower is switched over from having a physical card that you reload to a digital card. And there's a lot of kind of apprehension around this. Would cashiers at stores doing reloads still be able to reload the digital card? Would it really work? And I think it's just myself and Jeff on the call that use PayPower right now. But so maybe Jeff, you can talk a bit about your experience. But for me, I've found it's been pretty smooth. It's actually easier working with cashiers sometimes, because with the old physical card, they would often, if they hadn't seen it before, they would confuse it as a method of payment, whereas they actually have to scan it like a grocery item almost. But yeah, I don't know if you've had similar experience, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the cashier is somewhat familiar with what reloading PayPower is, at least at the grocery store I go to, they are. So the transition's been totally seamless, honestly. The only thing I will say about it is that getting your identity verified can be a bit problematic, or I've heard it can be quite problematic for some people. Like, for example, I was able to get verified within minutes, but on my wife's account, she cannot get verified for the life of her. It just instantly declines her, and there doesn't seem to be a current workaround for that. So that's kind of one drawback. But once it's up and running, it's there's very little difference between that and the physical card.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Josh.
With the digital card, so I don't use PayPower currently. Is it just like an app on your phone that they just scan a barcode or QR code on?
It's just a barcode that it's the same number that was on the back of your physical card.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I used to do PayPower many years ago, and through some abusive methods, I was banned. But Jeff mentioned to me that there's the chance to be able to get back in with these new digital cards. So if you have used it in the past and maybe haven't used it for certain reasons recently, they might be worth trying to sign up again and going through the KYC process to see if you can get it, as PayPower is just, it's such an easy method to generate spend, and specifically grocery store spend in Canada, which has multipliers on many popular credit cards.
Yeah, now, Jeff, you mentioned that the KYC or Know Your Customer program can be difficult to get through. Do you think it's worth for somebody to go through the hassle of trying to activate their PayPower, or is this something that's not really worth pursuing?
Definitely worth trying, at least once. It seems like either you will be verified immediately, or in the case of my wife, there doesn't appear to be any workaround to getting her identity verified, at least currently. So definitely worth a try at least once.
Right. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, you'd think it would, you see with some verifications, if it doesn't work, with the automated system, they'll prompt you to go into Canada Post or do like a physical verification. So that's unfortunate if it doesn't have anything like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the PayPower system is built of cardboard and potatoes. Good thing that it is for our purposes. So
yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think I called PayPower one time, and after I called them that one time, I swore I was never calling them again.
Yeah. It's great when it works, and if it doesn't, it is what it is. Right?
Yeah, I will say I didn't explain the background, but usually and I think most people do it this way, when you load money onto it, you get the money off of it pretty quick. You're not leaving. You don't want to leave a bunch of money on the card for extended amounts of time. So
they'll pay it off while you're sitting in your car in the parking lot after loading the funds, essentially.
Yeah, I almost got ran over in a parking lot once because I was staring at my phone trying to get the money out of PayPower so fast.
Yeah, there's also been some very interesting changes in the hotel landscape within those loyalty programs lately. More so focused on kind of the US side of things, but we've seen Hilton and small luxury hotels of the world partner up, and which they have previously partnered with World of Hyatt. And we've now seen World of Hyatt partner with Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So quite a bit of a shakeup there.
Yeah, super excited for SLH to still be part of the Miles and Points community. Like, it's not too accessible to Canadians other than like buying Hilton points or buying World of Hyatt points. I've had some excellent stays at small luxury hotels of the world. Like if you've ever visited Milan and gone on a guided tour, you've probably been taken to the Galleria that's next to the big church called the Duomo there. And I actually stayed inside the Galleria. It was pretty incredible. Our tour guide was like, now you're going to be absolutely shocked by what we're going into next. It's the busiest place in the world. And I was like, oh yeah, there's my hotel room.
Yep.
It's it's a massive plus for Hilton to get access to that portfolio. The way we've seen them roll it out so far, they're still adding properties, and we can expect, that first kind of chunk over this summer. But the fact that you can redeem Hilton free night certificates, which can be earned on many US credit cards, as well as if you're booking on Hilton points, you can receive, if you book 4 nights on points, you receive the 5th night free, even at these small luxury hotels of the world, which is insane value because they can become quite costly on a per night rate.
Yep. So I think we all see this as a positive change for Hilton. As far as World of Hyatt, though, what do you guys think about that change?
Well, Jeff, I think you're probably our World of Hyatt expert.
Yeah, I mean, for those that are familiar with Hyatt, the main draw to World of Hyatt is, of course, they're the last major hotel chain to have a standard award chart, which is a huge win for them because typically World of Hyatt redemptions usually result in some pretty fantastic value. But unfortunately, they implemented Mr. and Mrs. Smith outside of the award chart, and all the prices are not tied to anything other than the cash rate. So
that's a slippery slope.
Pretty disappointing. Yep. The other, it's just in my opinion, it's a big loss all around. Not only do they lose the footprint of SLH, which was a big plus for them, the fact that booking through World of Hyatt got guests free breakfast and upgrades at SLH was, for someone like myself who's not a Globalist member, that was a really nice benefit to have. And none of that is in place for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So I do have an article coming out about this. And as I said in that article, even though they're adding 700 Mr. and Mrs. Smith properties to their portfolio, it's as if they're not really even there because no one is really going to use points to stay at them, which is too bad because they have some really fantastic looking properties in some really unique places, I think. So we'll have to see what comes of that and the World of Hyatt program in general, because they seem to be on the same path as Marriott and Hilton when it comes to award charts and dynamic pricing.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like they're testing the waters with this dynamic pricing.
Yeah, they absolutely are. Yeah.
For anybody who's been around for at least a couple of years, you know how slippery of a slope this can be. It is really too bad that, they have all these gorgeous properties they've added through this Mr. and Mrs. Smith portfolio, but they're going to cost so much in points and you don't get any of the benefits that you would have gotten before. Like, it's really like 2 nails in the coffin at the same time, frankly. And it's so wild to see Hilton benefiting so much from this small luxury hotels of the world partnership. Like, it's massive. And then Hyatt, what could have been a very, very exciting addition to their program, and frankly should have been, is it kind of just fell flat within the Miles and Points community when it was announced.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah, I mean, the only silver lining is I suppose we have 500 more properties to earn World of Hyatt points at, but we're all about not spending money when we travel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the hotels are pretty, boutique luxury hotels, so those are kind of the ones we'd want to be redeeming at, not staying at to earn points at. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'll be watching the small luxury hotels of the world roll out as those properties come online on Hilton, seeing if there's any, miss prices or any unique niche opportunities for redemption. But also as somebody who loves those luxury experiences, it's awesome to have, these crazy small and unique properties available versus, your generic. And I use this word very lightly because, the Conrads are very much not generic at all, but compared to some of the small luxury hotels of the world, they are much more generic. So it's always nice when a hotel brings on additional, or when a hotel program brings on additional properties, and especially when they're kind of outside of the norm as to what we're used to staying at. So I'm excited for it.
Yep. Agree.
Yep, same here. Okay, well, that's all of our topics we've covered for the first episode. So thanks to everyone who's listening, and thanks to Josh, Jeff, and Danny for contributing. I'll just reiterate one more time. If anyone has any questions, episode specific, feel free to leave a comment on our episode page. And if there's anything you want to see or questions you want answered on the podcast, be sure to submit a question on our main podcast page. And we'll see you for the next episode of Miles Ahead, which will be on July 5th.